So we're going to get into the structure, headlines, images, whether we should storytell, whether we should quote people. We'll get into all of that in a second. Before we get into that, Daniel, is there anything we need to know about articles from an algorithmic standpoint, or is there any massive do's and don'ts before we get into the very practical elements of step 1, step 2, step 3 to create them?
I guess the first thing I'd probably put down is a bit of a warning. Articles take time. They are, compared to all other forms of content, the most time-heavy requirement. And the benefit, again, when you do it right, is the good ROI that comes from it. But you're looking at probably 30 to 60 minutes to put together a good article, assuming you are, passionate and knowledgeable about the subject. Shouldn't take you a lot longer to write a decent LinkedIn article. But that's a big time commitment, considering it will take 2 to 3 minutes to record a video, 5 minutes maybe to write a text post, 1 minute to take a photo. It's a big time commitment. So it takes time. And again, you need to be confident in what you're writing about. I've tried writing articles for other people in subject areas that I'm not knowledgeable or passionate about, and that might take me 3-4 hours and be a very stressful experience. Whereas if it's something that I am passionate or I'm telling my own story, I might be able to pump that out in 20, 30 minutes. So it takes time. You need to know what you're talking about. But once you understand how to do it, similar to content, there's opportunities all around you. And it's kind of just opening your eyes to seeing, actually, there's a story I could tell, something that happened to me today or yesterday or last week, maybe in my last job. There's a story. Actually, that would make a good article. And once you start to see it, you'll see there's ideas all around you.
Perfect. And before we get into, again, the nuts and bolts of the structure, headline, image, all this, are there styles of articles that we should be looking at? For example, with blog posts, we have like listicles. So anyone who's not familiar with that term, it's the BuzzFeed article of 10 ways to dump your girlfriend, or 15 ways to XYZ, train your dog to stand on its head and spin around. So there's listicles, there's long form, just editorial content. There's the content where you're asking questions and calling people out. Is there a specific style of LinkedIn article that works better than others?
No, is the short answer. I mean, we'll go through the whole structure. The structure has to follow a certain pattern, but that could be done in a list form. It could be done in a story form. It could be done in an informative form or an interview form. So it doesn't necessarily matter what the content is, but what does matter is how it's formatted. If you just sort of regurgitate blocks of paragraphs or one long bit of text, you're probably going to struggle to get engagement. You do need to structure it the right way. But yeah, in terms of, I've tried and tested and continue to try and test all different forms. They all work when you do it right.
Sure. And final one on this, just out of my personal interest now, because I know you follow the numbers on this. I know you look at the data, which is important. Do you find that all your articles get, 10,000 views? Or do you have massive discrepancies between some will get 100,000 and some will get 50 views? Is it quite level, or is it massively dependent on the content and the time that it goes out and all these different elements that are somewhat difficult to control? Or does LinkedIn over time level the playing field, consider if we assume that most of the content is a similar quality?
Again, Will, very similar to content in general, it is varied depending on the quality of the content. So you're right. There'll be the average sort of engagement. You see this on posts. You might get 100 likes. You might get 10,000 views. But then do it right, get that right topic, right timing, good content. You could see articles do hundreds of thousands of views plus. So yeah, it really does vary on the quality of the content and the timing of which you write it. So, tapping into making sure you're writing content that's relevant today to the audience, to what people want to hear and read, is going to help you drive better engagement.
Cool. As you say that, we should probably, I know you're an expert in this, but we should probably have someone who focuses just on this. We should have a PR expert on at some point. That'd be an interesting three-way conversation to look at how to spin the news. So wake up in the morning, what's happening right here and now. And I think there's an element of thought leadership of disseminating daily news or weekly news or business news in a format that people like to consume because they want to consume it from you as opposed to from the BBC, Sky News, or someone else. So that might be an interesting show to do in the future. But let's get down to, because we've been kind of teasing it a little bit. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts here. I guess the first place we should probably start is with the headline, because everything else is going to be based on that, right? Do you have any structure, any techniques, any tips for building a headline that gets clicks? Because if nobody clicks on it, there's no point in writing the rest of it.
Exactly that. It's the bait on the fishing hook, Will. You know, if it's not good bait, the fish aren't going to bite it. And it's the same with your headline. I have seen and read some amazing articles that had the worst headlines and so didn't get good engagement. The article itself was amazing, but they didn't have an engaging headline, so no one was clicking on it and reading it. So yeah, that's exactly where I start. My process tends to be come up with an idea and then right, okay, first thing I'm going to do is think of a good headline, because not only is that an important part, but it's also going to help me when I write the rest of the article sort of keep on track. So yeah, coming up with a good headline, it needs to be short, sweet, snappy, and attention grabbing. Word of warning, that doesn't mean make it clickbait. We don't want clickbait stuff where you're going to lure people in and then it has nothing to do with your title, because you'll just annoy people and it's going to backfire. So a good catchy title that's relevant to what you're posting. I try and stick to one line. So obviously you can go on to 2 lines. 2 lines can be just as successful, but 1 line obviously packs a better punch. And again, just try and make it look good. I'm a capital person, so I like to, it's a title. So I think every word should start with a capital letter. Again, doesn't mean you can't be successful with non-capitals. Just depends on the tone of your brand and the tone of the article. But yeah, think of your idea and then just try and simplify it in as an engaging as possible title that you think is going to grab people's attention.
Sure. One thing I like to do, I know it works, it's worked well for me on LinkedIn, and it works especially well on the Salesman podcast. So now anyone who's consumed this content in the Salesman podcast or the salesman.org feed will now see this in almost every show I do. I will say something that's relevant and useful, how to create better LinkedIn articles. Then very often in brackets, I'll put why this is really important. So this is what you should be doing this. And people are like, okay, LinkedIn articles. Then in brackets, do this because X, Y, Z. Data shows X, Y, Z. Or if you're not doing this, this is happening. Or X equals Y. These kind of formulaic sentences in the brackets after the fact. I find that increases clicks. It could literally be about 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Because we all know that we should be improving. And I'll do it in this episode as well when this goes out. We all know we should be working on LinkedIn articles and different things, but if the next post in your podcast feed or on YouTube or wherever you consume this content is, I don't know, Logan Paul is boxing Floyd Money Mayweather, it's clearly as tempting to go to that video than this one, even though there's actual educational value in this. So I always like to, again, not clickbait, it's true what I'm saying, but give you what you need and then give you what you want in the bracket afterwards. I find that structure works well.
Yeah, that's really clever, Will. I really like that. I see a lot of articles do the same thing, bracketing the sort of key points. The goal is you want to not only capture their attention, but as you say, lure them to click on it. And you need to, and sometimes being honest or sometimes putting everything right up there is what you need to do to bring them in. So have that mindset. Always think about, okay, if I'm scrolling through my feed, what's going to make me click on this article and choose to read it?
Sure. And I don't know if you know this for a fact. We're kind of getting into the weeds with the algorithm side of things now. So obviously LinkedIn doesn't share what it's doing and what it isn't, but tell me if I'm wrong, there's probably likely an element of dwell time when you click on an article. If you bounce straight back out, LinkedIn probably goes, it's probably not the best article in the world because there's little value in it because you jump back out. And I know Google does this as well. When you click on a link in Google, if you go through that site and go to multiple pages on the website afterwards and hopefully buy something, Google will bump that up the search rankings. So if you are trying to clickbait people, you might end up with more views on the post, but they are 15-second views as opposed to someone consuming the content and really getting into it over the course of 4 or 5 minutes. So another word of warning with the kind of clickbait side of things. Cool. All right, then so we've got because I'm visualizing this as we go through it, right? We've got the headline, and above this headline, we've got the opportunity for images, and within the post as well. We'll get onto the media in the post, but whether it's above the headline, or whether it's just below the headline, depending on mobile and the changes that LinkedIn will make to their own UI user interface over time, we'll call it the kind of headline image. What should be in that image?
So very similar to the headline, that needs to be something engaging. You want to lure people in, and those images make a big impact. Now, I use a platform called Canva, canva.com. I think we talked about this when we went through LinkedIn profiles. Free to use, by the way, and I don't work there, even though it always sounds like I do. But they have the right sort of sizing images that you can then add text, add images, add logos, move things around. I create 99.9% of my article images on that platform. And again, you're just trying to create imagery that's going to lure people in relevant to your headline. What I will say, what came out, I think I started doing this about summer last year. You're also now able to have a GIF or a GIF, depending on how you pronounce it, as your article image, headline image. So you've got this sort of, 2-3 second looping video, which again stands out so much more in the LinkedIn feed, which you can have as your article headline image as well. So it's trying to create something relevant. And obviously, Will, I'm all for good memes and stuff like that, things that are going to grab people's attention, provide a bit of entertainment, but lure them in to want to read your article. Now, if you're doing a top 10 list, then you want just a nice, strong top 10 style image. But if you're writing more of a story post, then find a good image, whether it's humorous, whether it's relevant. It could be a photo of you, but something that is connected to the title. I see a lot of people use images that aren't actually connected to the title. And again, people will just scroll past that.